Hello, I'm here today with Casey from She's Gotta Travel. She's been living and teaching in Spain this year. She's currently in Spain. So thanks so much, Casey, for coming on. I can't wait to hear about your year teaching in Spain. And if you're interested in teaching in Spain, then you won't want to miss this. So welcome, Casey. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm excited to talk about Spain.
Excellent. Well, let's get into the first question. First of all, why did you decide to teach in Spain?
That's a long story. I actually started looking at teaching abroad. So I'm in my late 30s. I started thinking about it in my late 20s and initially looked at South Korea because, as you know, they pay really well. It's very easy. And I wanted to pay off the rest of my student loans. Lots of stuff going on. It just wasn't the right time. So then around 2019, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the Czech Republic and teach business English because I'd been doing a lot of training and stuff at work. So I was like, adults, that's good. Then COVID happened. And it just became a lot easier. Like this program, since you have the student visa, it's a lot easier to stay here. You're not, things are laid out in terms of what you need to do. So it was just easy to get here. And then the more I started thinking about it, I was like, this is really perfect because I would love to be able to practice Spanish and continue learning more about that. And just be in a place where it was easy to travel to other countries. It just worked out that it fit everything that I wanted.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think Spain has been interesting because during the pandemic and everything, they're kind of one of the countries that's just kept everything going, and people are just flocking to Spain still. What was your teach abroad process like to get to Spain?
Yeah, definitely. You have to do a lot of it on your own with Spain because, obviously they have the website and everything, but you've got to apply, you've got to know about all the documents to have. So the background checks and, you need this letter and a copy of this and a copy of that. And then based on the state you're in, the requirements are different for your visa and what consulate it goes to. And do you go in person or do you do it online? So all of that, I would say, was a little bit stressful. You really have to be committed to the process to get it all done. Whereas, for example, if you were going to South Korea or another place, some of those it's kind of everything's right there for you. Where I think Spain, the process is there, but it's a little bit more DIY.
That's true. And then what about in terms of mindset? I think that's something that holds people back. It is scary to teach abroad, especially if it's your first time. So how did you feel before you moved abroad, and then maybe your first week or so? What did it feel like?
I think for me, because I've been thinking about it literally for almost 10 years in some way, shape, or form, the idea was there and it was not going anywhere. But I was kind of at the point in my career where things just weren't going the way I wanted them to go. I wasn't, there were other things. I was actually up for a promotion when I left, but it wasn't what I wanted. So it just really opened the door and made me more open to these other opportunities. It just seemed like the perfect time. So in terms of mindset, I was ready to go. And I think the stress of it all is, especially going when you're older, I have an apartment, I need to get storage, I have to think about healthcare. I know we talked about this before because you and I talked about Spain is just having a will and things that you might not think about because you're going abroad and you have stuff and things like that. So I think what really helped me the most is I'm a little bit stubborn, and when I want something, it's going to happen. So I was just kind of on autopilot. And I think also when I got here, because as you know, with Spain, there's a lot of paperwork to get your TIE card and to get a bank account. It's not easy here. The bureaucracy, everyone talks about it, but the bureaucracy is quite difficult, even for locals. So I think that mindset and kind of the persevering attitude really helped, because the second I got here, I was like, okay, SIM card, bank account, TIE card, everything. So being in that mindset definitely helped.
I agree with that. I don't know, whenever I've taught abroad, I'm doing this, there's no going back. You just kind of have to fully 100% commit. And that probably makes it the easiest. know things are going to be challenging, know that's going to be a bit stressful, but like it's 100% worth it in the end. So
Yeah, it's fun. I was thinking about this the other day because I just booked my flight to go home. It's so sad.
Ah.
I know. But I was thinking about like even though it's like, you're excited about it and it's a big step. Like I remember my brother drove me to the airport when I was coming here, and I remember I could barely breathe. I was just like, like he was like, "You did yoga this morning, just calm down." So,
Oh.
there's still that fear. I mean, it's like human nature, but totally worth it.
Tell us about your school in Spain. So where have you been placed?
Yeah, so I am in a high school in Cadi, which you will learn if you're in Andalusia. So I'm in Andalusia, which Cadi is in Andalusia, but I'm in the capital city of Cadi. So yeah, I'm in a high school. So I work with students who are like pretty much 12 to 18, and I have classes with all of the different grade levels. And a lot of people are shocked when they find out like I'm actually not in any English classes. So they have English teachers and they are in those classes with them. But I'm in physical education, art, music, physics and chemistry, math, geography, all of them. So I just kind of bounce around throughout the different days.
So what kind of things do you do in the classes? So you mentioned that it's not necessarily just English, it's not just grammar and vocabulary. So what is your role as a language assistant in the classroom?
Yeah, so it really depends on the grade level and the subject. So just as an example, Primero de Eso is like if you're in the US, it's the equivalent to like seventh grade. So usually what I'll do with them is all their stretching in the beginning. So, okay, shoulder, and then every shoulder, and then I'll do that. And then once they start to play games, because usually we have a lot of just like active games to keep them busy, then the teacher might say the instructions in Spanish, and then I'll say some of the more basic parts of that in English. And then as the kids have gotten used to working with me, they're like, teacher, Casey, are you going to play with us? So I'll go play with them. And then we end up talking because we're on the same team. So that's like the lower level. And then like just as a complete opposite of that, I have kids in bachillerato, which is more like our equivalent of 11th and 12th grade in philosophy. And so I had that class yesterday, and they'll take turns reading parts of the philosophy book in English, and then I'll just help them with vocabulary words they may not understand. And then we'll talk about the meaning of it in English and things like that.
Very cool. Yeah, the Auxiliares de Conversacion program is interesting because it's like luck of the draw. You like don't know what your school is going to be like, what you're going to be teaching. So when I did that program, I also did art classes and some like history and science and things like that. But I did also like English classes where we were working on test prep and grammar and things like that. So yeah, it's like you can have two people, maybe they're even in the same area, but their schools are completely different. Their experience is completely different. In general, what do you like most about teaching in Spain and least about teaching in Spain?
The most thing is hard because I just want to say everything. I mean, like I said, I'm in Andalusia, which is like beautiful. And the people are so warm and it's laid back, and it's just a really like a good change of pace for me coming from like a big city. But as far as it actually being Spain, like I love the culture, I love the food. And again, I think people all over Spain are, like warm and welcoming people. Yeah, and it's easy if you want to go to other parts of Europe. Depending on where you're placed within Spain, it's really easy to get to other places. So I feel like I got lucky in every possible way by being placed where I am. In terms of like cons, I would just say, like we talked about, there's a lot of like red tape, bureaucracy, disorganization. But as long as you're like committed to getting things done, like it'll happen. It's just probably going to go like this instead of like that.
I think that's a very good representation. Like, yeah, teaching in Spain is like, da, 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 da. Let's talk about culture shock. So anything shocking that surprised you about Spaniards or living in Spain?
Honestly, okay, Jamie, when I got here, I really expected to feel out of place. and I didn't at all, which has been amazing. I feel like it's just been a super easy adjustment for me. But the one thing that I cannot get used to, and I know I've talked about this like on Instagram, I'm not used to people being so close to you. Like it's just a thing here. And like in the US, like there's a personal space boundary. But here, like if you're walking on the sidewalk, somebody can be right behind you and they're not being rude, they're not rushing you. It's just a cultural thing. So I would say that's the one thing that I'm still not used to. But all of the other stuff, like I think a lot of people from the US have a hard time adjusting to like more things being closed on Sunday, or you have like the hours where things are closed, like 2 to 4, 2 to 5. I mean, it's an adjustment, but to me, it's like a good thing. Like these people have time to rest and they're happier. So you have to kind of look, to me, I like the balance. So I think the biggest thing has just been my personal bubble.
Yeah, your personal bubble does not exist anymore. Okay, so you mentioned before how you left a comfortable job, a promotion, all of that to just pack up everything and move to Spain. So what advice do you have for people that are in a similar situation?
The biggest thing that's helped me and what I would tell anyone is just know what you're wanting from it. Because if you're just kind of approaching it like, oh, I'm tired of life here and I want to move abroad, or I'm tired of this and I think it will be more difficult. I feel like what helped me is when I came here, I knew like, I want to be exposed to another culture. I don't want to be like hugely involved in the expat community because I can speak English every day at home. So I knew what I wanted to get out of it. And that really helped me with the mindset of just coming in here and knowing, like I said, what I wanted. So if you're kind of thinking about it like that, and you know that you're taking that next step for a reason that's going to benefit you in the way that you want, it's a lot easier to kind of give up the things that other people really value and that tell you that you should value too. So as long as you know what's important to you and what you want to get out of it, I think you'll be good.
What are some of the common questions that people ask you about teaching in Spain or living in Spain in general? What are some of those common questions?
I think some of the most common ones are how to find somewhere to live, because like we said, this particular program is rather DIY. So this is another area I totally lucked out. If you're coming here, you'll hear about Idealista, but it's just a website that lists all of the different open apartments or flats for rent. And I just ended up getting on those. Like I looked at the map of Cadiz before I came here so I could get an idea of where my school was and everything. And then the very first day, full day I was here, I walked to my school, got a feel for the neighborhood, and then started looking at flats that were near there, because that's another thing, like the mindset. I knew I wanted to be able to walk because I could not do that at home. So I wanted to be able to walk to work. And I would recommend, if you're using Idealista, just picking up the phone and calling, which is rather intimidating if you don't have great Spanish. But I kind of just wrote my script out like in Spanish, saying like, I'm sorry, my Spanish is not great, but I'm an English teacher. Is the apartment still available? And I got very lucky because my flatmate I had picked up the phone and she was like, oh, well, we can speak in English. So it was great because where I live now, like I can walk, I'm close to everything I need, and I'm just a bit out of the center. So I would say really think about that when you're looking for apartments, is remember what your pay is, and remember like that if you're not living close to where you're going to be working, you need to factor in transportation and time and all those other things. So definitely consider those. The other question I get a lot is, how do you make friends? And I guess I think that's also like definitely another mindset thing of just not being afraid to put yourself out there. So you'll definitely find that if once you become a language assistant, once you're accepted, there are tons of, even before you're accepted, there are tons of like Facebook groups and things. And you can get in those to kind of connect with people, and they have them for the different regions as well. So for example, like the second week I was here, a bunch of us that were in Cadiz, like, and not just Cadiz, but like Puerto Real, Chicana, like all these people met up by the cathedral, and we went up there, and then we had drinks afterwards. And so that's kind of where everybody that was a language assistant met. But I hung out with like the other language assistants for a few weeks, and I kind of found some friends through there that I'm really close to. But beyond that, like I said, I'm really fortunate because my flatmate, both of them are my two best friends. So I've had the opportunity to just experience things that I wouldn't have experienced if I'd have like only had English speaking friends that were language assistants. So I would say definitely put yourself out there. And Bumble BFF. I would have never thought about that, but my boyfriend actually made a joke one time about Bumble BFF, and I was like, I'm gonna think about that. And I got on it, and I ended up, just meeting like tons of great people. I went out with like 5 Spanish girls a couple of weeks ago, had a great time. So we'll hang out again soon. And then also the other thing for me is like, I love to work out. So my gym, I go to a bunch of classes there. I love the teacher. We might not hang out outside of class, but it's like a community. So it gives you that social interaction, even if you're not like speaking all the time. And you could definitely like build friendships from that. So I would say just find the things you like to do, maybe try out Bumblebee, but definitely even making friends with the teachers, they'll invite you out, make friends with their friends. So it's, as long as you're putting yourself into it, it's not that difficult.
Well, any last words of wisdom for us? Any, I don't know, motivation if someone is thinking about teaching in Spain, not quite sure? What would you tell them?
I would say just go for it. It's kind of like we said, it's luck of the draw in terms of location. And I've definitely met some people that are in smaller towns and weren't as happy, but I would say give it a shot either way, because it's only in total really like 9 months. And regardless, like you're definitely going to come away knowing a lot about yourself. You're going to know a lot about the country and the people. And to me, that's always beneficial. So yeah, just go for it.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all of Casey's information down below in case you want to ask her any questions about teaching in Spain and find out what it's like to actually live and teach there. And if you have any questions about teaching in Spain, just leave them below. Thanks so much, Casey, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.